everyone. This is update for August 8, 2022, day 166 of the war and of the date update. So first, today is gonna talk a little bit about the economy, and then we're gonna discuss occupational administration, then situation with the soldiers in the Russian army, and then we're gonna do walks through the front line. So first, let's start with the economy. Russian Statistical Bureau reported that Russian trade surplus for first 6 months of this year was $158 billion. That's more than 2 times more than it was in the similar period, in the same period in 2021, which was at that time was $70 billion. So if you just simply extrapolate this, this really means that Russia will probably earn at least $320 billion in trade surplus. So that's what you truly, so it's basically think in a way like a kind of like a profit from your trade. So Russian GDP was about 1.7 trillion, which is 1,700 billion. So as you can see, that's a pretty significant size of just pure, basically, profit from exporting goods outside of Russia. So while it's looking pretty impressive and great for Russia, no question about that, it's in a way kind of like a paper money in a sense that many capex projects are not getting funded. So that really means that there are problems in the economy because a lot of things that needs to be purchased with that money are not being done. We're not talking some consumer goods which are essentially expenses. For example, there are many problems with. There was actually an example today. One of the Russian mobile operators complained that they cannot buy equipment for their cell phone towers, and therefore they cannot sort of invest and expand the network, and they basically barely holding on to the coverage that they are able to provide. So this is a company called Wimpelcom. Well, it used to be called Wimpelcom, and the marketing name is Beeline in Russia. Now it's called Vion. So as you can see, this is how it affects. So on the paper, numbers look excellent and wonderful, but really it translates into many underinvestments that obviously make everything much more harder, much worse inside of the country. So this needs to be understood that on the surface, wonderful. If you open the box, it's actually not so much. So that's a situation. One piece of information about Russian economy. Now let's switch to Ukrainian economy, which we always mention is in total disaster. So for Ukraine to survive a little bit longer, Ukraine is receiving 4.5 billion US dollars from the US via World Bank, and that money, this is actually grant, so it doesn't look like it's a loan, so it's kind of like free money in a way, or equity, and so that money will be spent on all sort of like paying pensions or all kind of social payments in the country. So this kind of allows Ukrainian government to kind of limp along for a little bit longer, given the whole situation. There is some updates on that 8 billion euros that was promised by Europe, and that's being blocked by Germany. And the reason for actually blockage was that Germany claims, okay, this cannot be loans because Ukraine cannot really repay them, which is actually true, and it's correct. So it has to be more like a grants, and they need to sort of redo it to sort of package it as a grants. Okay, that makes sense, except that Ukraine really needs that money right now. As we discussed, the economy is not working, and the hope that there is opening of the seaports will change situation is, in our opinion, false hope. for simple reason, even this agreement is only for 120 days. So this really means it's there is time limit on it, and then it's not clear if Russia will be cooperating and willing to extend that agreement, right? So, and if you are, let's say, you're a farmer uh, or big investor in agriculture, you wouldn't, invest in the next crop, thinking, not knowing for sure, okay, can I then, export that stuff again, or I'm going to be stuck again and going to lose basically my money. So that really again creates another disincentive for the economic actors in agriculture not to sort of invest, not to put their money in the soil. And something similar is happening in Russia, pretty sure, because Russian government reported probably a week ago during our travels that the yield is going to be lower this year. It's still going to be enough to export, but we don't remember the exact numbers that they reported. But basically, and the point is not so much the numbers, but the trend that it's getting worse there as well. And next year probably, is going to get incrementally worse. So what happens is actually very interesting on the global commodities market. The sort of the markets are assuming, okay, the problem is solved. There is tons of supply coming from both Ukraine and Russia to global food markets, and for that reason, prices has dropped significantly for agricultural commodities, because the assumption, okay, everything's going to be wonderful and great. And we believe that there will be disappointment down the road. We don't know when exactly, because this also creates another disincentive for, let's say, Ukrainian and Russian farmers to produce even less, right? Because first you have uncertainty whether you can export or not. Then you're getting much lower prices than you used to because of the transportation costs went up and all logistics is so difficult. And the same goes true in Russia, right? So we're just speaking about Ukraine, but similar situation, probably maybe not as bad, but something very similar. And then and then the prices go down, right? Just on the market, so you're gonna get even less. Plus, for that reason, for example, the first Valker was, I think, Ukrainian corn that was purchased by Lebanon was refused by the buyer because buyer saw that the prices went down, and and they initially contracted it like 5 months ago, 4 months ago, much higher prices. They obviously don't want to pay that high price at this point, so they kind of said no to it. So it will be sold, this um, this corn to someone else, obviously, but whoever is having the ownership in it will book significant losses. So again, everybody's getting hurt in this whole ecosystem, right? Traders, Ukrainian farmers, Russian farmers. So and the market is sort of very myopic and thinking that things are going to be wonderful and great. There will be abundance of supply from both countries. We think that this is not going to happen. There will be problems down the road. So this is just kind of quick update on the agriculture situation in both countries. And now let's actually move to Russian occupation administration and the problems with filling ranks in the Russian army. So first, so there was, and this is all based, by the way, on the Russian sources. We don't use Ukrainian sources because obviously they cannot be objective in this situation. So this is kind of like official Russian sources. So so we just want to bring you one example of quality of people that Russian occupation administration puts in charge of the occupied territories. So in Nova Kakhovka, so you all know that's where the dam is. So they sort of appointed mayor and a couple of deputy mayors to run the town. And so the first mayor, this deputy mayor, what he was doing, actually, he organized, crime gang, and it was extorting everyone who was somewhat wealthy, because most wealthy people already fled. So somewhat wealthy, for money, basically. So, and he was actually arrested by the Russian administrations. The other deputy was doing exactly the same. However, the fate of that person is different. He was actually killed, apparently, by one of those people who were extorted, because everything is sort of super tight. If you take money from someone, it may mean literally death. So that's why if you see a lot of sort of killing of Russian occupational administration officials, some of them are from call it like Ukrainian insurgency, but some of them literally because they criminals and they getting basically pushed back from their how to say victims. So that's what's really happening. The quality of the administration, and then another related to this topic is Russia essentially announced that they're gonna annex Zaporizhia region or whatever they captured of the Zaporizhia region because they didn't control full of it. So the captured territories will be annexed, and they're gonna do referendum, basically trying to legalize this whole thing, similar to what happened in Crimea. So that's sort of call it to make it official, and then to claim that okay, this is our territory, and so on. So that the referendum is scheduled for early September, I believe September 7 or 8 or 9, one of those dates. That doesn't the date doesn't really matter. So just kind of tells where the direction of Russian leadership is taking, and then Ukrainian leadership response was, okay, if you do that, then there's no negotiation and so on. To which Russian sort of side is responding, okay, no problem, no negotiation, no problem. So that's kind of tells us that there's no chance for the resolutions through negotiation in the meanwhile. Now let's discuss the situation with with filling ranks in the Russian military. So the situation is really getting very difficult, and specifically, people who are in prison or criminals. I don't know what's the right word. Criminals and prisoners. They offered reduction in their terms to go in a fight on front line. Some of them take that opportunity. So there was a report in Russian media that one of such person who had a 5-year term in a prison sit there for I think 3 years or 4 years, went to the front line and died. So the point is that you don't do it unless it's you really have a acute shortage of the manpower on the front line, and it actually reminds situations similar to the Soviet army in about 1942 during war with Germany. There is also reports by Russian media that, again, confirming that, simply stating that there is a acute shortage of the manpower in the front lines, which is, again, very interesting because at the same time they complain that there is too many people in the rear disproportionately, again, which is, again, exactly what was going on in the Soviet army, where there was a very fat rear and very thin front line. And so this is exactly what's happening. And this gets to the point where, okay, this being known problem, we discussed it many times, but now this problem gets to sort of new level where it gets to the level where even, let's say, Russian artillery destroys Ukrainian defenses, and there's still some remnants of resistance. So this reduced manpower that Russia has cannot even clear up those sort of isolated pockets of resistance. So basically, it's so weak that it looks like their Russian command cannot kick the can down the road anymore. And pretty soon, I don't know, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month, they'll have to do something about the manpower, meaning either start this mass mobilization or partial mobilization or whatever it is. But the situation with the manpower gets extremely difficult, to the point that this Russian machine cannot move forward, cannot attack successfully, simply because just totally not enough people in the front line. So this does not relate to Wagner mercenaries because that's a very different system. It's in a way kind of private army. Well, even though if it's not truly private, it's a part of sort of KGB and so on. But the huge difference is that uh, it it works more on based on common sense ideas, and people sort of pay there, so they kind of know they self-select themselves. But even with Wagner mercenaries, they also have starting to have problems with recruiting people because the ads to go and join Wagner group everywhere in Russia on along the main highways, billboards, and all of that stuff. So that really means that they tried the opportunity to kind of get enough is getting smaller and smaller, and they have to advertise more and more extensively. So that's a situation with the manpower in the Russian military. Now let's actually move. And then another thing that I forgot to mention. So there were there were reports about this Antonievsky Bridge. So yesterday we discussed that there was attack. So 4 rockets hit it. Again, there's damage. It's not totally destroyed, so it looks like Russian military fixed the initial damage somewhat, and even if it's artificially, it's probably still at this point was about to be possible. Then Antonievsky Bridge, now it's again not possible. So again, this is going to be this long-term game that's going to be played. And then for that reason, our Russian command decided to actually build pontoon bridge along the Antonievsky Bridge, because if you remember, they started the ferry, but ferry is super small throughput. If anyone ever used ferries, you probably seen how slow it is. There's always usually huge backup in cars and trucks and so on. So that's totally not enough, and so they decided to do pontoon bridge, which also probably going to be problematic because the throughput is still very low. It's better than the ferry, but still not equal to the normal bridge, and plus it can be destroyed. So they trying to sort of address the problem, and it's going to be sort of drawn out fight between the Ukrainian side and the Russian side. Related to this, Ukraine is getting 1 billion in military aid from the U.S., and most of it is not, equipment, but it's ammunition. So it's ammunition for HIMARS systems, ammunition for self-propelled howitzers and general howitzers, 155 millimeter ammunition. So essentially, the focus is on that ammunition, which is exactly what Ukrainian army is missing, because there is no production of the artillery ammunition or any kind of ammunition, actually, for that matter. And again, that's a fault of Ukrainian government, because Ukraine has all abilities to actually produce, or used to have, and even right now it's still possible to do it, and pretty quickly. But there is no even single action, no moves to address that by Ukrainian government at this point. Now let's actually jump to the walks through the front line. I'm going to do it in a clockwise fashion, starting from the very north. The intensity of artillery fire along the border somewhat diminished, got a little bit more quieter there. Now let's jump to Kharkiv area. Things here on pause, quiet, just artillery fire. Pretty much nothing is going on there. Now let's move to Izyum area. Things here also quiet, just reconnaissance action, artillery fire, but nothing really major here. And the same is true for this initial attack from Balaklia towards Husarivka. It didn't go anywhere, so this probably was distraction attack by Russian troops. And given what we're told about the acute shortage of the infantry, this makes sense. Now let's actually move to the North Donbass front line and see what's going on. Oh, by the way, on this topic, we just want to draw your attention that Ukrainian command moved 46th Airborne Brigade to Kherson bridgehead. It used to be here in North Donbass. Now it moved there. So otherwise, situation here is sort of more stable, I guess, and we understand now better why. And what you can see, also Russian command is trying to attack here near Verkhnyo-Kamensk. Basically, they were attacking towards Bakhmut and Soledar here, Bakhmutsk, Yakovlivka, without much success. And so they're trying to see where there are other opportunities, if there are other opportunities to kind of use their forces there. But so far, there is not much success in this area. Now let's look at the southern section of the same area. Again, there is not much success here, with the only exception that Russian troops moved a little bit closer, or basically on the fighting on outskirts of this village Kodema on the eastern side of it, and that's essentially all gain for essentially all of the day. Now let's jump south to the front line west of Donetsk. Things here totally stalled for the Russian side, no much movement. As you can, and now hopefully you understand why. There's simply, yes, Ukrainian defensive positions are destroyed. There are some, remnants of resistance, and then, but there's simply no Russian infantry to take advantage of this situation. And then also Ukrainian command is bringing in new sort of replacement and reserves, so that sort of the opportunities kind of quickly, the window of opportunities kind of getting quickly closed once Russian artillery destroys Ukrainian sort of forces immediately in front of it. Now let's move to Kherson front line. Things here are totally quiet, nothing happening here as always. Now let's finally move to Kherson bridgehead. Things here also basically no major action. Even this attempt at attack towards Mykolaiv stalled, no success, and essentially things are on pause here. Remains to be seen sort of why. We clearly see, as you can see, Ukrainian command is building attacking group here in this area, sort of near this bridgehead, and that's why Russian command is trying to destroy this bridgehead. So far, it wasn't successful. It did cost Ukrainian army some losses to hold this bridgehead. Nevertheless, this bridgehead is creating strategic opportunity for the future for Ukrainian army, and now is clearly focused on damaging these bridges and damaging logistics as much as possible. So as you can see now, Russian troops are opting for this pontoon bridge, which obviously not because everything is going well. So that's just that's update for today. Thanks for watching, and until tomorrow, bye bye.